Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Catechesis. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you are not a mystery for which you should thank the Lord every day. We are here live on Thursday with a special guest who, and I'm going to introduce him in a moment, but first we got to get his tether off. So before we do that, don't forget tomorrow's show is our wonderful question and answer sessions, and that will be here in the studio in our usual place. And then next week, Carrie asked me what I'm covering next week.
What are you covering next week?
I don't know yet.
Do you want me to tell you where we're going next week?
Where are we going next week?
Gabriel Richard High School on Friday.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You know, I did a whole show on the history of Catholic schools in the U.S. We should find that. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty good. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so great. We're going to Gabriel Richard next week with Father Ryan Riley, who is a brother to me, and I'm excited. Will he be on the show? Mm-hmm. Sweet. All right. So I say we get right into today's exciting guest, fresh out of Quentin. Some years ago, many years ago, really, honestly, probably 21 years ago, I met today's guest, and he is, to me, a man of remarkable faith, a great intellect, a beautiful family, and he was a support to me in some really goofy days, and I'm so very grateful for him. But more than that, he has a pretty impressive title. His title is Supreme Dictator in Perpetuity. No, wait, that's not it? No, all right, let me look. Oh, he is the president and God King of the Michigan Catholic Conference. So let's all give a warm Quantum Catechesis welcome to Father, Mr. Paul Long. It's doing the sound? Mm-hmm. Now, normally you would hear it.
Well,
but our insurance bill, we had to cut our budget.
It happens.
Yeah. So, Paul Long, tell us what you do. Oh, and welcome to the show, by the way.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the introduction, the amazing introduction. Some of it true, and it's great. It's great to be here. I've heard a lot about this show. I've seen some of it from time to time. Yeah. When my wife says, "Hey, you've got to see what Father Joe did today."
She's amazing.
So it's fun to be here, and thank you for having me.
We're so happy to, Paul, and by the way, you know, like you heard me say, guys, he has just a beautiful wife and family. You outpunted your coverage.
By far.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about marrying up, and I did.
Yes.
In a big way.
And she gets Jesus points every day for staying in it, is my understanding.
She gets Jesus points for every day. Yes, exactly.
So, brother, what's your job?
I am the president and CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the Michigan Catholic Conference.
Okay.
And the Michigan Catholic Conference is the public policy voice for the Catholic Church in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
And there are 42 state Catholic conferences around the country.
Yeah.
Michigan is unique in that and all state Catholic conferences do advocacy work. They represent the church in the public square.
Okay.
But the Michigan Catholic Conference also centrally administers for the 7 Catholic dioceses in the state all employee benefits, and a risk management property casualty liability program, and then also with that then has a role with regard to investments because of the pension plan with regard to employee benefit in the employee benefit structure. So it's a multifaceted organization that has a tremendous amount of responsibility in assisting the ministry of the bishops in this state.
Yeah. And for those of you who are like me, who are like, that's a lot of big words, right? And we're simple people, right? But what he's saying is it's that immense, guys. They help represent us Catholics in the public sphere. They take care of the insurance for all 7 dioceses in our state, our retirement. They help us protect our properties. Like, you can't imagine all, like that. That's what gets me about you, is your brain. So many disparate realities, and you represent them all. Bro.
It's I've been with the MCC my entire professional career.
Okay.
And I'm the only person that I know in my contemporaries that can say that.
Yeah.
In days when, in other older days, our fathers may have been, although mine wasn't, but if people of his generation, some of them were with the same organization for their entire careers.
Yeah.
But I started at the MCC. My first position I was offered 9 days before I graduated from the James Madison College at Michigan State.
Wait, where did you graduate from?
The James Madison College at Michigan State University.
Okay, now, did you know that Jesus actually went to MSU?
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
You probably saw his picture.
I think when you were doing campus ministry at MSU, I heard that.
Yeah, excellent. So you come firing out of college.
And started an entry-level advocacy position, doing healthcare and taxes and regulatory issues, and following those matters in the Michigan legislature. And then was in that position for 6.5 years.
Cool.
Was then promoted to be vice president for public policy and advocacy, and was in that position for 16 years.
Bro.
And now for the last 11, I've been serving, lucky enough to serve as president and CEO.
Nice. Now, brother, in that part of your job, does that involve like meeting with politicians, or excuse the phrase, do you send other people to do that? So if I'm a senator and you want to talk to me about policy, hey, let's talk about healthcare. Church is a huge believer in healthcare. So is that what you do? Is that part of it?
It is part of what I do. I mean, we have my colleagues. I have 3 colleagues in the office that do the day-to-day advocacy work. The person who took my place as vice president, and then we have 2 policy advocates.
Okay.
One that Rebecca Mastee, who follows healthcare issues and pro-life issues and family issues, and then Paul Stankiewicz, who follows education issues and
from Gaylord,
criminal from the diocese of originally from Gaylord, now lives in the diocese of Saginaw.
Oh my gosh.
Lives in Alma, and so
good place
commutes to our place, and
that's not a short one.
But Paul follows education issues and criminal justice matters. And then Tom Hickson is our vice president for advocacy that works with the 2 of them and oversees everything in the advocacy area. So I do, and I will interact. We all interact. State senators, state house members, our congressional delegation in Washington, members of the staffs in all of these offices. We engage with all of them as a means of trying to understand where legislators are coming from, and trying to help them understand where the church comes from on an array of issues.
Yeah, and bless you for that. I can't imagine going in the lion's den. And I God bless you, and especially, and maybe we can slide into this, but if there's any topic, like I know professionally there's things you can't really, that are not to be discussed here. And if we hit any of those, please be sure and tell me, bro. Because anyway, when we talk about like education, for example, one of my buddies is a priest in Ohio. And he talked about how blessed we are to have you guys. Because what he noticed was when Ohio embraced the MCC style, right? The Michigan Catholic Conference style. He said, boy, our insurance got better, our retirement got better, like a lot of really cool things. But one of the things they have, and I think Wisconsin has, is vouchers. Can I say, is that the proper word?
Yeah.
And is that part of, like, do you believe that, is that part of your mission, like to try to convince the state that people should be able to use their tax money to send their kids to the school that they choose?
It is part. Michigan is more complicated than any other state in the country. And there are, and we are surrounded by states. Every state that touches the Great Lakes has either a tax credit or a voucher for education. Indiana has both.
Holy cow,
tax credit and a voucher for education statewide. That can be used. Michigan does not have any of those.
No.
We're restricted in only being able to, parents really are, unless they have the financial means to do so, are restricted in only sending their young children to schools that in the areas in which they live.
Yeah.
And that is, and there is some broader public school choice. We have charter schools that are public schools. We have, and there's some, you can cross district lines in some areas of the state, but by and large, you're restricted in that public system only. Whereas in every state that we're surrounded by, you have a much broader choice.
Yeah.
Public schools, traditional public schools, charter schools, non-public schools, faith-based schools, all of the like. And we are restricted in Michigan by a clause in our state constitution that was adopted in 1970.
Yes. Wow.
And it came about 100 years after similar restrictions were put into state constitutions around the country.
Okay.
It's called the Blaine Amendment.
Yes.
It's named after Congressman and then U.S. Senator James G. Blaine, who was from Maine, who was a virulent anti-Catholic bigot.
Yeah.
Who hated the Catholic Church, hated Catholic people, and wanted to put in the U.S. Constitution a provision at a time when a lot of Catholic immigrants were coming to the country from Italy, and particularly from Ireland, that he wanted to put into the U.S. Constitution that no aid could flow to religious schools. And by religious, it meant Catholic schools, because the public schools were Protestant schools.
Right. They were Protestant religious schools.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that failed at the national level. They weren't able to get enough states to go along with that. And so then what he did was he went out to have the states adopt similar language in their state constitutions.
Yeah.
And so many states in the late 19th century did that.
Yeah.
In the mid to late 19th century did that. And Michigan, 100 years later, adopted that. It was a proposal that went on the ballot that was pushed by the Michigan Education Association at the time. And it was a direct attack against funding that had been put in the state budget that would have provided funding for lay teachers in non-public schools.
Yeah.
That as more lay people were teaching in faith-based schools, it was thought the state had a policy, believed in a policy. A majority of the legislature, which was controlled by, in those days, the Senate was controlled by Republicans and the House was controlled by, this is the late 1960s, controlled by Republicans, or the House was controlled by Democrats, the Senate by Republicans. Bipartisanly, they pushed this.
Yeah.
Bipartisanly, it went to the desk of Governor Milliken, who signed it into law.
That's right.
And then this ballot initiative was initiated by the MEA to put this language in to be restricted. It is the most restrictive language in the country.
Yeah.
And as a result, we have a harder time of moving things through from a school choice perspective. Would it be great? Yes. My hope is before I retire is that we will have a broader ability to have broader school choice policies in our state, because it is a matter of fairness, it is a matter of justice, it
absolutely.
is a key social justice issue, which people need to recognize as a social justice issue. It is not right for individuals, particularly poor families, to be subjugated into only attending certain schools.
Yes.
Everyone should have as broad a choice as possible.
Well,
And if I'm
please.
from a standpoint of Michigan being kind of an island in a sea, of the states that border, as I said, of the states that border the Great Lakes, from Pennsylvania to Minnesota, we're the only state without full school choice. We're also at the bottom of test scores.
Yeah.
We rank last in all of those states in test scores.
Yeah.
And if we want to catch up, if we want to attract people if we want to attract corporations and companies to come to Michigan, we need an educated population.
Absolutely.
And we need students who are fired up and energized about education.
Yeah. And you know what gets me is the Catholic schools, everywhere I've been, and the public schools have a good relationship, right? And that's actually what worked against us. And again, have those positive relationships because we want to be good neighbors. But right now, the lack of school choice makes the public schools so much money. It's astounding. I don't know if you saw Sean Costello pointed out, it's almost $1 billion that the public schools in Michigan have got because Catholic schools exist. Why? Well, all of our kids over here at our Catholic school, there's a tax allotment for each kid. But since we're Catholic, we can't receive that to educate them. So where does it go? Well, what's the closest public school? Oh, here you go. So, like Grand Blanc Public gets paid to educate kids they're not educating.
Well, we're
educating.
They get well. That's
I mean,
simplified.
yes,
that's simple. That's right. And to go in a little more depth, the state has the money.
Right.
The local school doesn't necessarily have the money. They get paid for every student that they actually educate.
Right.
But the state has more money as a result of having 110,000 students in Catholic schools across the state.
Yeah, and what we do,
and 150,000 students in non-public schools across the state.
And what we do everywhere I've gone, and it works great, but again, it could be so much better, is the public schools where they're allowed pay the salaries of one of our teachers, right, for art. I mean, it's very strict. Well, you know all this. A ton of rules. And in exchange, they get our kid count.
Correct.
You know? So if you look, the cost to educate at Grand Blanc next door, which is a great public school system, I mean, for real. And working with them, I have found them to be lovely. But it's almost $11,000 per kid over there. Here, we're under $6,000 per kid cost to educate. And it really is astounding, yeah.
It is, but the shared time program that you reference is a very popular program throughout the state.
Yeah.
It really helps to build up strong relationships between certain public school districts and the non-public schools.
When I was younger, my mom and dad had a lot of friends from Canada who would come stay with us. And ironically, some of it was because of the healthcare situation. That one person needing kidney dialysis, well, there's not enough kidney dialysis machines in Canada. There's more in the 90s, there were more kidney dialysis machines in Boston than in Canada. So they would send them to the U.S. to get the healthcare. Right? And mom and dad would take these folks in. Do you know what every one of them told us? Never have vouchers. Because in Canada, the state began to exert control over the Catholic schools. So now, according to them, at Catholic schools in Canada, they can't teach Catholic social teaching because that's against the law. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it is, and that's a concern of some with regard to vouchers, and that's why there are some who, from a policy perspective, would prefer tax credits.
Right.
Because tax credits is putting money in the hands of the parent that then makes the decision.
Yeah.
It's not giving money directly to the school, which then keeps there's a separation then between the school and the government, because the government is helping the parent to fund the education.
Okay.
And that's why we see more and more tax credit programs coming up across the country.
Sure. And
there are 28 states across the country that have some form of school choice.
Okay.
So Michigan again is in the minority of states without this, and
it shows.
And it shows.
And do you have hope? I mean, outside of Jesus, forgive the phrasing, right? Obviously, as people who love Jesus, we have Saul of Tarsus became St. Paul. Anything can happen. But in terms of sheer practicality, may I ask, do you feel hope? Is there possibility?
I'm a very optimistic person. I always have hope about this. And as I said, it's one of my goals to have happen before I retire. And we'll see. I mean, these Blaine amendments are being attacked in state after state across the country. Yeah. Our Blaine amendment, written a little bit differently, is going to take a little bit more, but we'll see. There may be there may be a lawsuit at some point that challenges it. Mm-hmm. There are other ways of pushing to think about how do we help, particularly in this time of COVID.
Yeah.
So many young people, so many students have been prohibited from receiving the education that they deserve.
Yeah.
They've been locked in their homes.
Yeah.
They've been locked out of their schools.
Yeah.
And our Catholic schools have been open.
Yeah.
Throughout, except in the initial stages in 2020, in the spring of 2020, but throughout the fall of 2020 and the spring of 2021 and throughout this fall, our schools have been open throughout the state, throughout the country, and other in Lutheran schools and Jewish schools and others have the same. And it's about. We have a commitment to ensuring that children are educated.
Yes.
And as Catholics, we believe that parents are the primary educators of the children.
Yeah.
That schools exist to help parents with that education, but that parents have the right to direct where their child should be educated.
Yes.
And the documents of Vatican II state very clearly that government has a responsibility to ensure that parents don't have a financial burden placed upon them because of the choice that they make.
Yeah. And as a priest, as you can imagine, it's the greatest heartbreak of my ministry, right? Is the idea of, if I could, I just wouldn't charge tuition. Everywhere I've gone that's had a school has had such a radical commitment to Catholic education, like bleeding commitment, and I love that. We have needs here that we could meet tomorrow if we closed the school, right? That it would allow us, if you'll excuse the phrase, to spend money on things that need to, but nothing is more important than giving kids a place where they can learn about the universe and the God who made it. Right? Where they can see themselves as more than a cog in a societal machine, where they can hear and learn universal truths instead of the newest educational gimmick. Right? All of these things are islands in the sea of chaos for our kids. And someday, and Dan and I always joke, I buy a lottery ticket every week. Just please, Jesus, I won't keep any of it. We'll have, you know what I mean? Sean Costello, you'll love this. I don't know if you know, he's done the math on how much we would need in an endowment to educate every Catholic school kid for free. He's got the math done. He said, because I wrote that number on my board and I stared at it every day. Someday, So, well, sorry, I kind of got excited, but I have hopes,
That's so unusual for you.
Yeah, I know. I'm such normally a laid-back, placid dude. Here, you know what, brother? I want to read you this. Let me make sure I'm seeing it right. It looks lovely. Yes, okay. Hey, this is a comment from our viewer, one of our viewers. I find MCC is always helpful. They always answer their phones without putting people on hold. That's big, bro. That's boot level. Good stuff. Here's one. Boy, this is tough. Okay, and I get it if you're like, we can't go there. Is there absolution for Wolverine fans? Wow.
Well, that's really a pastoral issue. It's not one I could answer.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be best to. I have a hard time finding a way to that answer.
Yeah, law is law.
But
Jesus is clear.
Especially this week.
Yeah. Yeah. So please don't attempt to go to communion. I used to joke about, my last assignment, you may remember, I was down in Lenawee. So most of my parishioners were Ohio people. Right? And it was a fascinating thing to live in Michigan, have a Michigan-based parish. But Ohio's right there. I mean, it was 6 miles away. And most of our parishioners were Ohioans. Ohioans? Buckeyes, whatever.
Ohioans.
And every Sunday in the winter, all these Buckeye coats. And I just wanted to yell, you traitors. What are you doing in this beautiful church? But I never did it. But one thing you didn't see that maize and blue stuff.
Well,
yeah. And
because
Buckeyes,
really, what respectable person would wear such clothing?
Buckeyes tend to like Spartans. That surprised me.
Well, we have
beating them
because the
regularly.
enemy of our enemy is our friend.
Yeah, and D'Antonio was Ohio guy. Tucker's got Ohio connections. I mean, every good coach in the Big Ten stopped in at Ohio State. You hate to say it, but it's a fact.
Yeah.
You know, just like all the Michigan coaches. No, not one of them. Okay.
Well, Coach Schembechler did. I mean, he was.
Yeah, he had a Buckeye.
He was at Ohio State
Yeah.
before going
But
to
I
Miami.
can't think. U of M doesn't export coaches, and MSU's exported a few. You know, Saban being one. Wasn't Luke Finkel here? Was he here?
No, he was never. He was an Ohio State guy.
Is he a Ohio State?
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, sorry. So, brother.
But a good Catholic man, a great coach,
yeah.
as we're seeing at Cincinnati. And,
Holy cow, huh?
But he has 6 kids, and
know.
just you know, from everything I understand about him, to be just a really, really good man.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not heard a bad thing. And when we were looking at him at State, I remember we got an inside guy, right, who told me we really got no shot. And this is what I was told, quote, he's a devout Catholic, his kids are happy, right? And that was their thing. It was like, and I'm not kidding, I promise it's true. And Ohio has vouchers, so his kids could go to Catholic school. And that meant something, you know? And I think he's just one of those cats who wasn't about to prove his kids if he didn't have to. And he seems to be doing just fine.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Up jumped the devil, huh? Well, anyway, okay. So what would you say, brother, are the biggest public interest issue? What is the biggest public interest issue? I'm having trouble saying these words. Are you with me?
I am. I'm
okay.
following the dots.
Okay, so what is the public interest issue facing our church today that you would say, guys, that's the biggie?
Well, there are. I think that the challenges that we have for education.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, is it a challenge? Is it the biggest challenge to our church? No, it's the biggest challenge to our people, and it's the biggest challenge to people who want a quality education for their children.
Yeah.
You know, so many of our in our inner city schools,
yeah.
and even in our suburban schools, we have a large percentage of students who are not Catholic.
Right.
But their parents are making a sacrifice to send them there.
Same here.
And there are others out there who want to do the same thing. And so I think that the biggest challenge facing us as a society, you know, is education. And moving this issue along, I think, over time is critically important to the well-being of people and to the well-being of our state.
Yeah.
We need an educated populace. We need a populace that's excited about education, and we need job providers to see that we have an educated populace and want to locate here in Michigan for the quality of life, that they can be happy that regardless of where they locate their company, there are going to be schools there that are going to be able to educate the children of their employees.
I was in Chicago, I'm going to say 4 years ago, but I'm bad at the passage of time. Honestly, it could be 8. But I went down there to see a friend, and one of my former students texted me, right, and said, I hear you're going to be in Chicago. Can you meet a group of your former students at this bar in Chicago? Sure. Turns out I was right near it. So I go in, and this is a true story. This was a bar in Chicago. So you've got Illinois, DePaul. I mean, you've got a million great schools just in that state. Everything was MSU. The whole, you know this already, don't you? And
Well, I know there's bars like that, yeah.
And it was filled with Lansing Catholic kids. And I'm telling the truth. Like, I thought I was going to see 3 or 4 kids. I probably saw 40. I'm telling the truth. We remember Molly Hackney.
Yeah.
She was one of them. But all of these kids, and I'm like, what the? And excuse this, but they're every kid that when you graduated, they're like, that kid's going to be running the world, right? Well, they couldn't get a job in Michigan. And they're all down in Chicago. And what do they all do? Every free chance they get, come home to see mom and dad. They don't want to be there. They want to be in Michigan. And I saw the same thing in Hudson. I saw the same thing in East Lansing. That every kid that finishes well, I'd love to stay in Michigan, but there's nothing here. And I do think, and I'd never thought of this till you said it, I always blame GM just because I'm from Flint, right? You saw what they did to us. But really, it is about education, isn't it?
It comes back to that time and again. Yeah.
My gosh, brother.
And you know, I think that we'd have more job opportunities if companies were satisfied with the fact that we have an educational system here in the state that caters to every single student, not just some,
Yes.
and that is about making sure a system that is about educating all kids,
Yes.
not just part of the student base.
Well, and there's nothing healthy, I think, and the Catholic Church learned this starting in the 70s, I think. There's nothing healthy about no competition, right? That I talk to older priests, and one of the things, as a priest, that I pray the church catches this shift. I don't see it happening, but I pray she does. We are not educating Catholics anymore. When we pray Mass, we are at base level, right? There is, like, I wasn't catechized in anything. I went to catechesis, and maybe I was taught, but I don't remember, right? And my point is, the Catholic Church had no competition. Catholics went to church. If the priest was cruel, if he was abusive, if he was a jerk, if he was boring, they went to church, because that's what Catholics do. And at some point, that changed. And now, there's competition. As a priest, you actually have to be holy. As a priest, you actually have to work to get people in the door. And that's really good for us. It's painful. But hopefully some of this arrogance will fall away. And in the same way, if to me there was a healthy, viable alternative to our public schools, it might convince them to quit flirting with some of the strange things, the newest trend. You know, a young lady from a school that I went to, who's 12 years younger than me. So I'm 51, and whatever 51 minus 12 is. She can't spell. Because that's when the school went through this phase of, well, don't correct spelling, it's bad for their ego. Seriously. So 3 years of kids from that school district can't spell. And she's sharp. But when she writes, you think, "Oh, poor girl, she has an issue." Well, no, no, you don't correct their spelling. How does it sound to you? Was what they were taught, and that wasn't just her. That was 110 kids a year for 3 years, and then we told them, "All right, good luck." You know?
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not just about, this is why the power has to be in the hands of the parents.
Yeah, amen.
Because it's not just about the public schools. I was with a fellow last week who was educated at an elite East Coast prep school.
Okay.
And his children were in that same school now, and he moved. He moved his family away from New York City.
Okay.
He moved to Florida. He resisted moving to Florida because he wasn't sure about the education.
Yeah.
Right? But he saw what was going on in this elite private school where they hadn't tested one of his children for 3 years in anything.
Yeah.
And that's not education. That's babysitting.
Yeah.
At best, it's babysitting.
Yeah.
And so he's moved them. They moved to
Expensive
Florida
babysitting.
from New York. They moved him into a school that he, looked for and found. Again, this is a gentleman who has means, but it's all about parents.
Yes.
Right? Whether someone has means or someone doesn't. If they're, if someone doesn't have the skills necessary to work, or is learning skills necessary to work, and picking themselves and working themselves out of poverty, they don't have the means, but they know what they want for their child. That person has to be empowered with the same abilities as the elite to find the school that they believe is best for their child.
That's what I'm talking about.
And the surest way for us to eradicate poverty is to ensure that everyone has a solid education and an education that they deserve.
Yes. And I could, obviously, as you could tell, talk about this all day. And I'm fascinated that this is where we went. I like this. And I'm so grateful for your work on it. Oh, if we may, if you're comfortable, one of the things I'm going to make a statement, and you need to tell me if I'm right. Okay, because I don't know. But as I've looked at you guys as flyers, and those are first rate. You know what I'm talking about? Those things focus. You guys put a focus. So I don't know, it doesn't seem predictable. But
about 4 times a year they come out.
Okay, we get this orange piece of paper, and it's very well laid out and very clear, and it's written so people like me can understand, right? And I'm not sharp in this world, but it breaks down. Well, this is what Catholic is, right? This is our social teaching. This is what we're working at. This is how we see this issue, and I so dig that. But I can't tell you how many Catholics are surprised to find out that when you and I say pro-life, we don't just mean anti-abortion. We mean taking care of moms, right? We mean a lot when we say this. And so I guess that's it. Is that statement correct? When we say we're pro-life, that means you're fighting for universal health care in some form. That means you're fighting for the thing that just got voted down, maternity leave, right? That means we're fighting for a lot more than we're fighting against. Is that correct?
No, that is correct. I mean, from conception to natural death, the church is there to advocate and to protect and to promote life.
Yeah.
And in all life, in all of its stages.
My brother.
And so, it's not about just making sure, we've pushed for several years. The Catholic Conference has pushed for a program in the state budget to provide funding for mothers who find poor women, who find themselves in a pregnancy that they wonder how they got here.
Yeah,
okay. And as a means of trying to help them think through and provide them with an alternative to abortion, because a lot of women in that situation are that, well, my only way out is to destroy the child.
Yeah.
And we have to be about ways of helping these women, helping all women to think through that's beyond that. And so a program that helps to fund prenatal care, a program that helps to ensure that they receive their education, a program that helps them with food and diapers and educating them about how to be a mother, educating them about what it is to be a mom, how to care for this young child they're either going to give birth to, or that they've already given birth to. And so it's that program, which we had in the state budget for about 5 or 6 years, has been vetoed the last 3 years, unfortunately and sadly, as a means of and in this past year, sadly, we saw the abortion rate in the state for the first time in a generation go up instead of down, and probably COVID had something to do with it, but the lack of plans to fund alternative programs helped to drive that number up as well. And so it's important that we wrap around services around people, that when people have a need, that there are places, and our Catholic charity agencies and our crisis pregnancy centers across the state do such a great job of trying to help people. But there's only so much money to go around within the agencies. And so sometimes government funding is helpful in this regard to help these kinds of programs and to help the charity agencies do what they need to do to help people. They're the ones that know how to help people, and how to help lift people up. Lift people up from poverty, lift people up from depression, lift people up in all sorts of ways. And in these ways, then, but it is from conception to natural death, and what are we doing as a society to help and protect people throughout?
And it really does come down, and the folks who listen to me are so sick probably of me saying this, but to moving beyond this mindset of Republican versus Democrat. because I don't think either of them really have much interest. And instead, it's saying, well, today I'm on you because I want you to vote for this Democrat-sponsored bill. And tomorrow, you're on me because you want me to vote for this Republican-sponsored bill. It's this idea of we're not allegiant, we're not Holy Spirit, we're not
Well, the church is
loyal.
neither right nor left.
Yes.
Right? The church is about a set of positions. The church is about people.
Yeah.
And the church is about promoting the well-being of people, the common good of
Yes.
all.
brother.
And so, from a Michigan Catholic Conference perspective,
Yeah.
we work with Republicans, we work with Democrats, we work with everyone who is willing to have a listening ear,
Yes.
everyone who is open-minded about advancing and looking at and thinking about the common good.
Yes. Is there any, like, I know Michigan used to be famous for this, and I don't, if you can't answer this question, you guys have. Michigan used to have a bunch of pro-life Democrats. Do we have any anymore?
Well, there are, for the first time in my entire career, I do not believe there may be in the state
Okay.
legislature, but there are none that are endorsed as being pro-life.
Okay.
At the congressional level, we do not
Yeah.
have any.
Darn it.
With the retirement of Congressman Stupak from
Yeah.
the Upper Peninsula and
Yeah.
the retirement of Congressman Kildee here in the Flint area. And a couple of others over time, but those are the last two here in Michigan. And there was a very strong, there are a few in the Congress, there's only a couple in the Congress. There is an organization, Democrats for Life.
Yep.
I just saw them last week. There were a handful of them out front of the Al Smith dinner in New York City.
Nice.
And posting their signs and helping people to remember that there are Democrats who stand for human life.
All right.
And stand up for life in all of its stages. and that's their mantra. It's life in all its stages.
Yeah.
And so I mean there are pockets of it. And hopefully over time, what my dream would be is that we would have Catholic people who, it wouldn't matter if they were Democrat or
Yep.
Republican,
Who cares?
so long as they imbue themselves with Catholic teaching
Yeah.
and have that come out and not let the party dominate
Right.
what they believe, whether it's immigration or abortion.
Immigration. Gosh, we didn't
Right?
even get on immigration.
Well,
Yeah.
we could
You
have
gotta
a
come
whole
back.
series.
Yeah.
But it's about Catholics are called when they are in public life to be one person.
Yes.
Right? What they believe, what they say they believe, is what they should also be acting upon.
That's my bro.
And they shouldn't be bifurcated.
Yeah.
They shouldn't believe one thing but then act in another way. And that's what Catholics are called to do, regardless of what position they hold in life.
Yeah.
Whether they're a teacher in a school,
A janitor.
they're a politician, a janitor,
Yeah.
a CEO. They have to be about true to who they are as an individual, true to their conscience. And so it's my hope someday is we'll get to a point where we have tons of Catholics who are interested in running for political office,
Yes.
who run. It doesn't matter what party they belong to, but they want to speak out to what is best for people and
Yeah.
what is for the common good.
And I know you're picking it up. I assume you guys watching or listening are picking this up. I don't, and you know how I feel. This is a beautiful man. And I am blessed to call him a friend. I have to pay him so that I can call him a friend. And I'll be honest, that's awkward. But all kidding aside,
Minimal,
what I feel,
minimal, really.
Yeah, minimal. What I feel bad about is we're almost to the end, and we haven't got to know you yet. So, of course, you're going to have to agree to come back. Because that's God's will. And you can question it if you'd like, but hell would suck. Although, what strikes me now, maybe, I don't know even know if we're allowed. Could we come to you next time? Could you show us the MCC, or is that, I don't know.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
So how about this? Maybe we can do a show where we come out to Father Paul. Your wife is going to kill me.
I am the father of three.
Yeah,
So
I'm an unwed father. He's
there
a
we go.
wed father.
Wed father. With three. Beautiful, wonderful children.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And your wife is an angel. I'm serious. I thank the Lord for her.
I do too,
you do
every day.
occasionally, yeah. So with that, I think we're going to have to get after the speed round. And then we do have probably, it looks like a couple other questions. I know. Okay, yeah, let's do this real quick before we get to that. So tell us about your beloved. Where did you meet her? What did you do to convince her to abandon reason?
And she's a brilliant woman, so that abandoning reason wasn't easy for her. We met at a Super Bowl party.
Oh my gosh.
I was attending, and my friend who was the host had a friend that was Melissa was in medical school at the time.
Okay.
In her second year of medical school, and she was studying for a test with a friend of hers who knew my friend, and said, "Hey, let's take a break and let's go watch a little bit of the Super Bowl."
Sure.
And so they came, and they wound up sitting on each side of me, and they weren't a couple.
Right.
And so when they departed to go back and study after the 49ers were blowing out San Diego.
Oh, is that?
Wow. And when they left, I turned to my friend and I said, "Clearly they're not together. What can I find out about her?"
Yeah.
And apparently when she got in the vehicle with her friend, she turned to him and said, "I want to know more about him."
Nice.
And the following week, we both. A couple of weeks later, I was invited to attend a party at which her friend was throwing, so it gave us a chance to get to know each other a little bit. We went on our first date on the 21st of February, 1995, and we were married on the 24th of May in 1997, a little over 2 years later.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh!
It was just a great time in life, and for the last 24 years, it has been an amazing life with her as her husband, and she's a pediatrician in East Lansing, and does great work with an array of different kinds of children, from an array of different kinds of families, and it's really just it's a joy. And we have 3 great kids: a junior in college, a freshman in college, and a freshman in high school.
Bro, wow. Hey, and do you have a dog?
We do not have a dog.
Allow me to apologize for that.
On our second date,
Yeah.
We agreed we would never ever have pets.
Okay.
Not even goldfish.
So
Not
do you
even
see that
goldfish.
little spray bottle there? Do you see the little
Yes.
one there? Could you hand that to me?
Certainly.
Now, someone donated this because my dog, he sold his colon to the devil. And do you smell this? Did it drift over there?
It has.
Yeah. Allow me to just.
I'm glad to know it was the dog.
Yeah. Oh, I'd tell you if it wasn't. People are like, "Oh, don't blame the dog." I'm like, "No, I'm pretty clear when it's." Yeah. But so a big thank you. Right.
Brenda.
Was this Brenda Gordon?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Brenda. Oh wow, Brenda. Do you smell that? That's lovely. And now he's leaving. Oh my gosh.
He doesn't like the smell.
Can you believe him? He made that awful thing. I spray some fresh rain something citrus.
He must be satisfied he came back.
Fujiko Pow. So 3 kids. Now, where are they in college, if I may ask?
Our son is a
Jesuit schools.
junior. Our son is a junior at Michigan State, studying building construction management.
All right.
And our second oldest, our daughter Mary Elizabeth, is a freshman at Indiana University, and she's in the Kelly School of Business at Indiana University, which was a big thing for her to be directly admitted. And she's having a great first semester down at Indiana. And then the youngest is a freshman at Lansing Catholic.
Oh, nice.
So.
Nice. Lansing Catholic will always be close to my heart. Tom Maloney is one of the greatest men I know. And that's a thing that both of you have, is just a crap load of integrity. Okay, so now with the family stuff out of the way, let's talk about what matters. Are you ready for the speed round?
Let's go.
Now, Paul, people have died, but I don't want you to worry. And there are no wrong answers, but there are wrong answers.
wrong answers, there's just answers he'll make fun of.
Yeah, basically I'll mock everything you hold dear. Nothing big. Yeah. So, are you ready?
Let's go.
Car or truck?
Car.
Italian food or Mexican food?
Italian.
Listen to my man over here. You hear this? No pause, no whatever. How you doing? Steak or fish?
Steak.
If you would have said fish, our friendship would have ended.
Well, it depends on the day. If it's a Friday during line, it's fish.
Yeah. Why? Do you know? Actually, you'll appreciate this. So I was a brand new priest. You'd just been married a couple of years. I didn't know we were the same age.
I'm
think
4 years older than you.
Okay. And you still have your hair.
I do.
Okay. We're not friends anymore.
And hopefully I will for a long time.
Yeah, no, we're not friends anymore. True story. The Bishop Carl was having his first Lenten day of prayer with his priests. And I pray the 6:30 Mass, and then I had the 8 a.m. Mass. So I had 2 Masses right away. And then I knew it would make me late to the priest meeting, so I called and said, I got an 8 o'clock at Girard. And this was at DWAT. So I grab a sandwich from McDonald's, and I kind of hustle in with my Coke and my little bag. And, of course, priests are just like lay people. The only seats available are in front. So I sit down, and I'm horking on a sausage and cheese muffin. And it was the first Friday of Lent. That's a true story.
I'm not the one that gives you absolution.
Yeah, no one did. Monsignor Lunsford, whom I just think is God's twin, he ripped on me for probably 20 minutes. He was laughing so hard. And he said, the only reason no one could blame you is because clearly you just didn't think. Like, who would do that in the front row?
Right.
Sitting in the front, Poor Jesus. Do you see why he took me out of the gene pool? Oh, here's one I think I know the answer to. Baseball or football?
Baseball.
Yes. Guys, Paul loves the Tigers as much as me. And we have actually achieved critical mass talking about the Tigers before. That's a true story. Football or basketball?
Define.
College football, pro basketball is crap, right? So give me a second. College football versus college basketball. Isn't that tough?
That's really a tie for me.
Okay. Now, how about, would you watch pro football or pro basketball?
I would never watch pro basketball or football over college football.
There we
or
go.
basketball.
Okay. That was the question I was attempting
And
to
if
ask.
if it was pro football, college basketball, college basketball.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Chevy or Ford?
Chevy.
Nice. Text or phone call?
Oh, phone call.
Really?
I like talking to people. I like
of course. See,
being
I
with
hate people. So I text.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
It's like, if this minimizes contact, I'm all for it.
If it's in a hurry, text. But I
Yeah.
prefer
Some jerk sent you a
conversation.
text just when you were on your way
when
here.
I was ready to pull in the parking lot.
Movie or book?
Book.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Alaska or Florida?
Florida.
Florida or Texas?
Florida.
Wow. Okay now. Of course you wouldn't pick Alaska. For the same reason you phone call.
Well, it's interesting. My father-in-law hated Florida, loved Alaska.
Yeah, that's my dream.
Beautiful man, who we lost a couple of years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's just a wonderful, wonderful man. But he and my mother-in-law had a place. She still has it in Florida.
Okay.
And he got it because he knew she loved Florida. And he hated Florida. Everything about Florida he hated.
But he loves
hated
this girl.
because he hates the heat.
Oh, yeah.
If it gets above 60 degrees, he was not happy.
That's me.
And so he spent about 4 weeks a year in Alaska, and a couple anyways. So when you ask Florida or Alaska, it brings back some great memories. Yeah.
What's his name?
His name, Tony Peroni.
All right. Jesus be with Tony. Tony, pray for us. And thank you for Melissa. Okay. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Facebook or Twitter?
I don't do social media, so
Who does your stuff for MCC? They just retweeted me the other day.
we have
Oh, you got a team.
people.
Okay.
People for
that. Cat or dog? If you gotta pick
If I
one.
had to pick, it would be dog.
Yes. That doesn't have a colon that was sold to the devil. MSU or some lesser school in Ann Arbor?
MSU.
Cake or pie? See, this is the tough one. This is probably, to me, the toughest one.
Cake.
I'm with you. Now, who was it here who's going to hell?
Rich Bud?
Rich Bud argued with me on this. He was like, it's not close, it's pie. And I think I have to fight him.
I think it's cake. Now, if you give me a certain kind of cake over a certain kind of pie, I might choose pie.
What is your top pie?
Apple. Apple and cherry are my favorite.
I love cherry pie, but it always hurts my stomach, which is weird, because cherries don't.
What about pecan pie?
Pecan pie's good. You like it too. Now,
Yeah, but-
mincemeat pie is my gold standard.
It's
Yeah, and
good
have
too.
you...
But my mother used to make, I still would say she made the best apple pies I ever had in my life.
Nice.
And so, apple pie always rises to the top. But chocolate cake takes the
How you doing?
cake.
How you doing? My mom had a little thing. An apple pie without cheese is like a kiss without a squeeze. She ate cheese with her apple pie. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
Well, and I didn't hear about it till I was about 14, 15 years old.
Okay.
And the pastor came over for dinner, Father Rich Chizniewski, God rest his soul.
He was from Germany.
And he had, and he asked for a piece of cheese on his apple pie after, and
Yeah.
he came over for Sunday dinner, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of that, and then my eyes were open. I saw other people doing it, but
Yeah.
that was the first.
No, my mom, she literally had that on a plate. An apple pie without cheese is like a kiss without a squeeze.
There you go.
And leave it to Germans to go, there will be sugar and cheese. People makes this work. What was your pastor's name?
Father Rich Chizniewski.
So the way you spell that in Polish is LZXTRN, the number 9 ESKI.
As the number one altar server in our parish, I was dubbed Mr. Perfect by him.
Nice.
So,
What you kind of are.
well, I don't know about
need
that. I was
You're
always
the
kind
man.
of,
I need you to
didn't really
retire
like that, but
and leave White Hills and move here. I do. I need that to happen. And in fact, I may have been undermining your reputation at work to try to force a retirement. No offense.
there was, when Melissa was being recruited after when she was completing her residency, there was a pediatric practice here in the Flint area that worked out of Genesis that really wanted her.
You want me to give him a call, Paul?
And we made the decision that it was best to live in East Lansing.
Yeah. Do you want me to make some calls? Just give me the order. I've got connections with my Legos. Euchre or pinochle?
Euchre.
Hot dog or hamburger?
Hot dog.
Kogel. Yeah,
What's
Kogel.
that?
Kogel hot dog. Serve the curve.
Ballpark Frank. Mustard only. Only mustard. Unless you're at Lafayette, Coney Island.
You remember earlier when I said we're not friends anymore? Now we're enemies.
Kogels are fine.
Those are, but ballpark franks aren't hot dogs. I don't know what they are.
Sure. What else do you get at the ballpark?
You get Kogel or Hebrew National or Nathan's. That's what you need.
Did you know that Kogel makes the hot dogs for Wrigley Field? They have the recipe and they ship them there.
You're not a Cubs guy, are you?
No, I'm not.
Oh, good.
No, but I've been there enough to know.
Who you rooting for?
Since 1975, my brother and I have bet on the baseball playoffs and the World Series.
Okay.
And from 75 through 83, I had my pick of who I wanted because I was young. He's much older than me.
Yeah.
But beginning in 84, when the Tigers were in the World Series,
How you doing?
suddenly I was stuck with automatically having the National League team. So since 1984, I always
Well, you win a lot.
so I have the Braves, and
I do too.
So I have my pick in the National League playoffs. He has his pick in the American League playoffs, and we go
Okay,
from there.
that's fair.
So I lost both league championship series. I chose the Dodgers,
Yep.
and he chose the Astros. So I doubled or nothing on the series, and so I'm all in for the Braves.
Well, and we're about the same age, so we all love the Braves. Everybody our age, right? Because that was the only team we could watch for years and years, right?
Well, it was them, it was them and the Cubs. We're on all the time.
And I'm rooting for them because I decided I hate Houston, and for no reason. I don't know why, but I don't know. Hate is a strong word, but I'd like to see the underdog.
Well, I think it'd be nice to see a different. Houston just won a couple of years ago.
Right.
It'd be nice to see a different team win.
Yeah.
But quite frankly, I like both teams. I like Houston. I like the players in Houston.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that the Tigers have Carlos Correa
I was just gonna say that.
as their shortstop.
Oh, I tweeted last night, and I did not expect this. Like, I thought maybe a few Tiger fans would be like, yeah. I got Houston's attention by accident. But what I tweeted was, out of respect, I'm going to wait till the World Series is over for 3 minutes before having a 40-day prayer and fast to get Carlos Correa. And, a couple Tiger fans, it started with, yeah, I'll join you, and then Houston people found me.
Oh, interesting.
Turns out they don't want to part with the best shortstop in baseball. Who knew?
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And some people are talking about, what's his butt? Trevor Story. Here's what scares me about him. Colorado is a hitter's park. And everybody I've seen leave Colorado never hits anything like that anywhere else.
Right.
And if we're going to do that, I'd prefer we wait out our boys in the minors. Maybe Zach Short figures out how to hit, because that boy can field.
Right.
Right.
But,
okay. Sorry that Paul is so off topic, you guys. It's so embarrassing. The highways or back roads?
Depends.
Okay, you're not in a hurry.
If I'm not in a hurry, back roads.
Yeah, I'm with you. Bacon or ham?
Bacon.
Yeah, and nobody has ever said ham. Like, Ham's mom was here and was like, bacon. Yeah. Augustine or Aquinas?
Augustine.
Nice. Wine or...
In part because Augustine is, I am trying to make a pitch for this, but he should be the patron saint of lobbyists, because he essentially, it was Augustine who hired a layperson to represent him to the civil authorities.
Okay.
It was Augustine who created the first state Catholic conference, essentially.
Shut up. I love him. Right? He is the most quoted saint in the Catechism. Do you realize he's quoted more than St. Paul? I didn't think it was possible. We quote him more than Jesus in the Catechism.
That's,
It's a beautiful
amazing.
brain.
Yeah.
And I think Aquinas is overrated. Okay, wine or cocktail?
Well, again, it depends. Before dinner, cocktail. During dinner, wine.
Okay. All right, beer or wine?
Beer.
Beer or cocktail?
Cocktail.
That's tough, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Because it all depends on where you're at, what's
Yeah.
the time of day, what's the...
You a bourbon or a Scotch guy?
Irish.
Irish whiskey. Nice. Okay. Where were we? Hiking or biking? Ugh. Let's skip that.
Biking.
Really?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Pool or beach?
Beach.
New car or classic car?
Because I have no idea what I'm doing with a car.
Oh, yeah.
New
You
car.
gotta go new.
So
And
new car
you're
with
on the
that
road all the
warranty,
time.
where if anything goes wrong...
And you got a lot of driving you do, my man. Oh, all right. Well, Paul, I love the hell out of you, and I can't wait to get more time with you so God's people can see. Because otherwise, what they'll do, and I fell into this as a young priest, all I knew was every month we wrote huge checks to MCC, right? And of course, when you're a nonprofit, it's like, but then it was right around St. John's, and it was Keith Tharp who taught me this. I said something about it. I was like, gosh darn, these are big checks. And he goes, we're a big institution, Joe. And he said, when I hire Catholic school teachers, I tell them, yeah, we can't touch public school salary, but our benefits are better than anyone because the Catholic Church lives what she teaches about it. He told me that. And it really helped me to understand that, well, of course those are big checks, but here's the key. It would be bigger if it wasn't for you guys, and our good people would get less.
Yeah, it's the MCC serves a tremendous responsibility
yeah.
and purpose.
Yeah.
And without knowing how much time's left, but it goes to the heart of what you just said.
Yeah.
You go back to the pension plan was created in 1966 because at the time, lay people are coming in to work for the church in
Yep.
our parishes and in our schools.
Yep.
And Cardinal Dearden said, people are not going to get rich working for us.
Yeah.
We have to ensure they have a dignified retirement.
Yes.
And so the pension plan was created.
That was Dearden?
It was he who pushed for that. The health plan, benefits plan in 1968, because again, there was a need to provide a well-balanced plan for
Praise
everyone,
God.
whether they were in Marquette or Monroe,
Yep.
and everywhere in between. And then in 1970, the property casualty program. But
Yeah.
all of it pushed by Cardinal Dearden and his brother bishops at the time as a means of being together,
Yes.
working together we talked about working together for the common good of society,
Yeah.
and advocacy, but working together for the common good of the church.
Yeah.
To together do what is necessary to help everyone.
Yeah. Well, we thank the Lord for you, brother. And we thank the Lord for the people who work with you and for you. Thank you. You could be making more money somewhere else, but you chose to put it on the line for God's people. And I praise the Lord for that. And I'm going to wrap us up with a prayer.
Just let me say thank you for everything that you do and for having me today.
Oh my gosh. No, your mom had you, actually. Wait, that's not what you meant, is it? Yeah.
Let's go on to prayer.
Okay, yeah. Because gender fluidity. So what I'll do now is do a closing prayer. And then, folks, if you're interested, let us know. And we'll set up something to go see Paul at work. And maybe whatever tour is appropriate. I remember there's a lovely chapel there. Name another insurance company in the country with a chapel with the Blessed Sacrament in it. Yeah.
I don't think there are any.
No, most of them Jesus would leave. Yeah.
The St. Thomas More Chapel, by the way.
Is that what it is? Oh, my boy. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Jesus, the church is not her priests, or her bishops, or her pope. The church is all of your people who love you and who strive for holiness. And today we thank you for Paul Long. We thank you for the Michigan Catholic Conference and all of its people. And we thank you for all of those people all over the country who set aside a secular salary and lifestyle to serve your church and to help us be who we are called to be. Be it just investing, be it just insurance, or fighting for a just society. They stand for us, and so today we stand with them in prayer. Keep them all safe, keep them on mission, and help them to know our love and gratitude. Bless Paul's family and keep them safe in your care. For all of the people, Lord, that we fret about, the people we love, that we worry about all the time, for all the situations that we obsess over, we give them to you because we love you and we trust you. And we ask that Almighty God bless all listening and watching and present here through the intercession of Saints Simon and Jude. And in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow when I will talk about St. Simon and Jude. I was supposed to today. I'll talk about them tomorrow because they're kind of a big deal. And then we'll do your questions and answer. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Bye.
Did it work? No, D'Antoni. Is it over?
No, it's never over.